Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebster.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks. This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales operations onto the show to deconstruct the why, what, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebster, the leading customer engagement platform for Salesforce. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
I'll give you a little introduction in a minute. Before that, some updates and admin. Henry's back. Thank you for coming back. Henry's had a couple of weeks away. You've been very busy.
Very busy.
Doing sales operations.
Yeah, doing sales. Yeah, very busy.
So everyone, thank you for tuning in, whether you're listening on iTunes or whether you are watching on our site or on YouTube. We're joined by someone who made an appearance at the Sales Ops meetup a couple of months ago or a month ago.
Yeah.
And everyone I spoke to about you speaking there was like, Jay is great. Jay is really good. And so we're like, we have to get Jay on the podcast. And then I think you might have reached out to Jay, or maybe I did.
I think you did.
I did.
I think I was on raving about Jay.
Yeah.
The things that I heard.
Because Jay has like an extensive background in sales operations, right? From all the way from like IBM, which is massive, to smaller startups, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be going into. If anybody has any questions, you can comment below of the YouTube video, and we'll get back to you at a later date. Cool. So should we kick things off?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. So question number 1 is kind of more about your journey. And if we could talk about the bigger company and the smaller companies, that would be really good.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, thank you for having me. And I kind of got into sales ops by luck. So I did a 4-year university course in London with a 1-year gap.
In what?
In business and computing at City University in London. And I then started applying to corporate companies, and not back then, but like in 2017, people weren't really thinking about startup companies or sort of smaller tech companies then, in the UK anyway. So everybody was always applying to, big banks or big IT companies. And so I applied to a few tech companies, and I landed a job at IBM. And you didn't really at that time kind of apply for a specific role. Like you kind of said if you wanted to go into product or development, or if you just wanted to go on the business side.
Right. Yeah.
And so, they said sales ops analyst, and I have no idea what that was. Rolled up on my first day.
Wow.
And just got kind of thrown into it. So what they do is they have a rotation scheme. So I was then getting handed off the role by somebody that had just finished their placement year as a sales ops analyst. So it was really getting the idea of what sales ops is from that person that handed off to me, and then the business executive that I was supporting for that 1 year. So it was very much by chance of understanding what sales ops was.
It sounds extremely structured.
It's very structured.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like now, but in terms of the whole placement rotation program, very structured, but also the sales ops element, like it's a separate function in IBM. It's huge. They've got centers across the world with sales ops and business ops.
Wow.
How many people do you think they have in sales ops globally? Hundreds or thousands?
Thousands. Probably
really?
Thousands.
Wow.
Yeah. Thousands when I talk about shared services. So it's a combination of sales ops, sales enablement, and probably business operations support as well, which I'll come on to what that means.
It's a company that made and sold the first computer. So they're an old business, a very large business.
Yeah.
100,000 people. maybe?
300,000
wow.
people when I was there. So
Wow.
so it's probably bigger now. But
It's incredible.
yeah.
So that's when you started learning the trade. And
Yeah.
what happened after that?
So I did my 1 year. So a lot of it was looking at data. It was week-to-week movements, looking at pipeline stages and forecasting. That was pretty much what the role was about, but it was in different territories, so understanding how it works in different territories in the UK and how you split them up, and doing deployment plans of do we have enough people in each area. So it's quite good around the strategy piece. Went back to uni, and because I enjoyed what I was doing at IBM, I went back. But when you go back on a graduate scheme, there's not typically a sales ops kind of role. It's a lot about consulting. So putting you into projects that they've signed up. So I did that for a year and a half, which was business analytics and optimization. So it was kind of an element of sales operations, but I didn't know it at that time. So really going into different projects, working with external clients around the data, how do you analyze it, and then trying to streamline some processes. So I did that for like a year and a half. And then I went back into sales and business operations. And I'll go into what business operations and IBM meant at that time. I don't know if it's changed. But how I got back into that was actually the business executive that I was supporting during my placement year actually said, Jay, I have just become the business executive for IBM Africa. We're doing a startup organization there for IBM. I need you to come out and build me a sales and business operation excellence. So he's like, he messaged me. I was like, where are you? He's like, I'm in Nairobi in Kenya. I was like, do you need me to fly out? He's like, can you fly out tomorrow and meet
So it was
you?
almost complete luck that it just so happened to be that business executive, and he just knew you.
Yeah, it was a bit of luck at the beginning that I got to support
And then it was
somebody
pure
that
skill
was
and knowledge and talent.
and keeping the loyalty, like keeping in touch and showing my work was
That's
good.
what in these big organizations, the people will move up and they'll bring other people with them, right?
Yeah.
But they only bring you with them if they like you and you're good.
Yeah,
So it maybe it's fortunate that you met that guy, but it wasn't fortunate that he liked you and wanted you to come to Africa, right?
Correct, and I think that's kind of slowly happening in tech world right now as well. Is if you associate yourself with somebody that is smart or realizes that you need them, then if they do move, then they may pinch you as well. So it was the relationship that I had with that business exec, and so I flew out the next day, met the team. I was like, what is going on? This is not what I expect from IBM. There was no functions, nobody, like their sales is like crazy. There was no marketing function, no finance function, no HR function. Everything was outsourced into different countries. It was hectic. So I joined. And so what sales and business operations means in IBM is the sales ops is real sales ops. What we talk about is, pipeline forecasting, your commission plans, you're running your performance improvement plans with your performance rating plan frameworks with individuals, looking at sales strategy, sales enablement, and the processes and the tools that you have within just the sales function. Business ops is slightly different, where you end up supporting the executive or the VP of that department or that business, and you start looking at all the functions within it. So sales, marketing, finance. And in IBM they call it delivery, whereas in this world we probably call it customer success and account management.
Yeah.
And trying to glue them all together.
Nice.
So it was, Jay, we're in 3 countries right now in Africa. We need to get to 17 countries in 2 years. How do we do that? And so how do you build operational excellence where we can scale? So if we want to go to another country tomorrow, how do you do it? And how do you set that up? So it was cleaning out all the junk. It was creating sales processes, sales structure, sales stages, what they meant. And the difficulty with there was what they did is they had a very small team, but they were all executives from IBM from very mature markets. So you had my business exec that came from the UK into a startup world. So he had a huge army of a team doing everything for him, but he was then put into an organization where it was you do everything. Sure. And then the same with the sales reps. They were classified as sales executives, but they were really big executives in like Portugal or the US for IBM, and they had armies of teams. So they were really clueless. So it was actually educating them of what needs to be done. So building processes, go-to-market strategy of what market should we go into with what product, because IBM have so many.
Yeah, so many.
Which product should we go into, understand which industry we can go into. We had obviously the luxury of being able to go into kind of any market we wanted with any product, and the pricing. So how do you do that? So it was how do you combine all these departments together from a business perspective. And I was looking at P&L and cost, but also on the sales side. So did that, managed to do it for 15 countries in 2 years, where we built management systems and processes and kept it to a point where we were auditable. We had risk assessments in place, but processes in place as well. That then took me to our headquarters in Dubai. So the work that I did there was recognised by our Middle East Africa headquarters, and they said, Jay, we want you to do it for 5 regions now. I was like, okay. Cool. And so, but what you've got to realise there, and what they didn't realise, is that if you put a process or a management system in place in one country, you can't lift and shift it straight into another country. You've got to really you've got to try and keep the base there as much as you can, but you've got to realise that you're going to have to tweak things or add things in place in different countries.
Why is that? Different cultures?
I would say if you're talking about like forecasting and managing pipeline, and your attitude towards that is very different. Yes, like the culture, I'd say in Africa, it was very laid back. It was very much, I'll do it now, and they don't do it for another month. And how do you deal with that? Whereas somebody in Gulf and Levant, for instance, if they say we'll sign tomorrow, they actually do end up signing tomorrow. So you kind of need to take all these things into perspective, but also like, if you're in Nigeria, for instance, we need an extra business approvals before we can send out a contract, for instance. So you've got to incorporate all these things together. So did that. What I loved was the fact that it was rolling up my sleeves, getting things done, putting things in place, and being able to scale it. So I left Dubai after 2 years.
So you're kind of like, it was kind of like working in a startup, but in a massive organisation.
Yeah.
That's good.
We were treated as a startup. Like if you failed in terms of your profit, you're busted, you're done. Like, yes, you've got this worldwide corporation with probably a lot of money, but you've got to own the profit and loss account. Like if you are losing money, if you're signing crap deals, we don't care about the growth, we care about the bottom line number. And so it was challenging. It's like, how do you cut costs? And so it was very different to what people would expect how an IBM experience would be in those markets.
Why did you leave IBM?
Been there for 7 years. I really enjoyed the very much hands-on approach of rolling up my sleeves and putting things in place that weren't there, or gluing things together. And at that time, in 2016, what we had called emerging markets, which were these startup markets, actually started becoming a little bit more structured. And so I was like, it's my time to leave. I've done my 4 years outside. I've learned so much from people around me, like VPs and general managers, CFOs that have been in the business for years and years and years. So I kind of left, and I was like, I'm going to go to the tech world. I'm going to join the risky bit. So what I struggled with actually was I had a combination of sales and business operations. So you can kind of call that commercial and revenue operations now in our world. But what I struggled with actually was businesses in the UK didn't really know what sales ops was at that time, or they were coming round to it, or they were a lot more of a mature business, and they thought that they just need sales ops to keep running the business. So I was looking for revenue kind of biz ops roles. People weren't really understanding that yet. So I shifted to sales ops just to get my foot through the door and the experience, which is what I definitely needed. So joined a startup that had been around for like 7 years, were post Series B, were doing really well, but had never had sales ops before. And the reason why they wanted me was purely because they had some broken processes. They were managing Salesforce quite well, to be fair, but they just didn't have things that made things automated, or weren't able to track or forecast where they were going to end.
There's just gaps in their knowledge. They didn't know how to.
Yeah, and that's what it was. Like they actually handled Salesforce pretty well. Their duplication wasn't as bad as any other place that I've been to so far, to be honest. They managed it really well. The kind of numbers in Salesforce were fairly accurate in terms of that versus what we're billing. So it was fairly mature, but they just wanted it to take it to a next level. So I joined them, and then since then I've joined different startups at different points. And slowly focused around sales ops, but now I think more and more it's broadening. Like they're like, what is sales ops? And now it's kind of going down a route of revenue ops, which is great because
we hear that quite often.
Which is what I think sales ops is about gluing departments together as well.
I'm seeing trends. Two trends. Trend number one, Kirsty also said she got into sales ops by accident. It's quite interesting. So maybe that's the trend. Other trend is definitely.
I mean, you don't go and study it, do you?
Yeah,
people didn't know about it.
Maybe there should be.
I think
maybe there should be.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start online course. Anyway, but moving on. You've had like 10 years experience now, right?
Yeah.
From that experience, what do you think makes an awesome sales operations person?
I think you've got to have a very open mind. And what I mean by that is you use your experience, but you always go into a business with a very clear, open mind for the first month or so, just take in everything and then start understanding the sort of, the bits that they are doing, but maybe not so well. The bits that they're doing and they're really well and you haven't thought about that before. The bits where they are trying to do things, but not as well as you think it can be. And then the other bits around the big grey areas that they're not doing. And so understanding that before you jump in and start putting all these things in place. So I think that's one. I think two is being able to speak to salespeople and understanding their frustrations and dealing with them. I think for a sales ops person, whatever you're going to try and do, if you don't get buy-in from the people that are affected by it, you'll fail. Like you will fail and the business will fail, and they'll think that they've probably hired the wrong person, because sales ops is all about putting things in place that are going to make the sales team more efficient, effective, productive, and how the business can scale with it. And if you haven't got that buy-in from the people that are going to be actually running what you're actually implementing, then it's always going to fail.
And also, with sales ops, you have to be able to interpret. So managers don't always want to see another dashboard. Everyone's kind of dashboarded out, aren't they? So they want insights and they want knowledge from you. They want interpretation of what they're seeing, because lots of sales directors, they don't look at graphs. They don't like them. They just want to see the raw numbers and what is it you can tell them that's interesting, that can push the needle on.
I think just to follow that, you've got to exactly understand the VP of sales or the sales manager or whoever you're supporting on a daily basis. Understand what they like. Don't go in and create a dashboard with graphs because they may not like graphs. They may want conversion rates and data and a table, which is perfectly fine. Then you do that. Or if they like graphs and graphics, then do that, because otherwise you're wasting your energy on something that somebody's not going to really like or appreciate.
So on that point, do you think that it's actually useful to have sales experience in sales operations? Here's my favourite question.
All right, so this might... Okay, so I strongly feel that somebody in sales ops needs to understand what it's like being in sales, and by that I mean working closely with salespeople. I don't have sales experience, but when I talk to people, they think, "Oh, Jay, have you been a salesperson before? You'd be great at it." And the reason why is because I've worked so closely with salespeople, VP of sales, CROs.
It's a very diplomatic way of saying.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I strongly feel that from the salespeople that I've worked with before, if they moved into a sales ops role, then I think they'll be very narrow-minded, and I think that comes back to the question I answered earlier: is you've got to be very open-minded. Whereas I think a salesperson will say, actually, I needed to do 6 clicks to log a call and I'm going to fix that, when really the bigger problem could be around your sales processes or your sales stages and defining them. So if they are able to take themselves away from that emotion and say, actually, I'm going to do sales ops properly, then great. But I don't think, I think a more successful person in sales ops will probably be somebody that works closely with salespeople and gets to understand them and then able to do that.
It's similar to making a great salesperson a sales manager, because if you promote someone into that role, well, their role now is looking at numbers,
it's different,
crunching Excel data, and it's a fundamentally different role to being a salesperson. So you've also taken a good salesperson away from their role. So they're not selling anymore. and they might be woefully underprepared. So that's the way I think about it.
Agree.
So we've had, I think it's episode number 7 or episode number 8, and I think we have almost a 50-50 split between people that have and haven't been in sales. So that's why I love that question, because the people that obviously have a sales background, like you, Henry, are going to be like, yeah, of course. I
mean, I wear many hats. So super interesting. Like what? So you're at Doctify at the moment.
Yeah.
What does your technology stack look like?
So I like to keep it very lean. We're very early on, and
how many people in there?
So we've got 29 people overall in the business. We've got 11 in the sales team in terms of an SDR and a sales split. So it's sales reps and an SDR, and then we've got a head of sales and account management on top. That's our size right now. But I think this is what I alluded to before in the sales ops meet, was that don't go crazy as much as you want to when it comes to implementing tech, sales ops.
I'm a big believer in that. I think people sometimes they can concentrate on trying to buy a piece of technology because they think it's the silver bullet.
Yeah.
When actually it'll probably cause more issues. They need to go back and look at their fundamentals or understand if they're using their CRM correctly, because things like CRMs are expensive. Are using it to its maximum capacity rather than investing in new technology. You know, I think the other day I was giving an example of what's the point of using things like Gong or those voice transcription analysis methods if you're like talking to the wrong person in the business at the other end of the video call? Because I think technology can do amazing things, but if you haven't got the fundamentals right, what's the point? I think that's
it's exactly that, and I think you've got to, and this is why you've got to work really closely with the people that are going to work with the tools and process that you're putting in place, because putting in 6 different tools in the space of 6 months is not going to help them. Like, imagine yourself, being lumped with 6 different technology tools, and you spend time trying to figure out how to use it, and it's change. Like it's a huge change from just implementing a screen share tool, for instance. It's now I have to start doing screen share. Okay, how do I do it? What do I do in Salesforce or your CRM? How do I use this tool? What do I show them? It's very different, and you can't do. You've got to master that, implement it, make them happy or satisfied, and show them that it was value. And if you show them that what you're putting in is value to them, then you can go on to the next one. So
how do you show them value?
You've made their lives much easier. I think for me, it's always been if I can decrease the amount of time you spend on admin, or the number of clicks you're doing in your CRM. Or making your lives much easier to sign a contract, or making it discharge one, whatever that is, then that's how I show them value.
So it's really increased commissions.
Well,
is that right? Or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, the salespeople will see value in something if they earn more money, right? Ultimately, if they can do deals quicker and earn more money, they'll see value in it.
How lean are we talking? Like you just have pieces of paper and people.
Nothing. No. So at Doctify right now, we have Sales Loft for our cadencing and outbound. We have our CRM system, which is Salesforce. I then use Cloud Dingo, which we'll come on to later.
Is that a D?
DDupe. Yeah. And that's more for my side, which actually helped the sales team and made them more productive and effective. And then after that, at the moment, we have DocuSign to send out contracts to our enterprise clients because they like to sign.
Yeah, I agree.
An actual agreement. And then I've just implemented ChargeBeat, which is a SaaS subscription solution where you just send out a subscription link. Yeah. They agree to the T's and C's, they enter their payment details, and it's done.
And it looks after recurring payments.
Yeah, and it's recurring payments. You don't have to worry about receivables and aged debts and having people access to your product without paying or anything like that. So that's where the revenue ops hat comes into it. And that's how you glue the kind of functions together. So that's how lean we're talking.
Pretty lean.
So we're not. When I came in, we had demos of all sorts, like project management tools. I was like, you don't need a project management tool for your sales team. No. You don't need all these other tools. We had like 4 different screen share tools. And I was like, we're not even doing screen share. Why do you need them? because our market's very difficult to do screen shares because it's hospitals and clinics, and their Wi-Fi is not always the best in the UK. So we don't need it. Like, you're just frustrating salespeople because they're trying to do a screen share of a tool and other people can't see it, and they don't know what tool to use. Like, we've got 4, and I'm like, this is crazy. So
is there a point in the future, like next 6 months, if there is a tool that you want to get in? Is there
an analytics tool? So for me, I do all my analytics in Google Sheets. I've automated it as much as I can. I've linked it to Salesforce. But I think we're at a stage where we need to be able to scale it. Right now, Google Sheets is good as it is. Fine, it's good. It gives me all the data that I need with conversion rates and so on. But be able to scale it it's gonna take a lot of my time.
And that'll be a Salesforce native package, or
it'll probably be something like it'll integrate into Salesforce. Yes, I came on meeting this morning. So cool. like a cluster.
Shout out to Rory. Yeah, episode number 3, I believe.
So I know Rory really well, and we had a discussion today because he knows that my next thing would be analytics. I'm not going to go crazy with everything else, but slowly.
Cool. So favorite tool right now?
Cloud Dingo.
Tell us more.
So if I was going to set up my own business, or I was going to go into an organisation when I was employee number 2 or 3 or whatever that is, every single business always down the line face data quality, duplication.
Agreed.
And the amount that organisations spend on money, time of employees trying to fix it. Search the internet, say for like 5 minutes, find somebody or a lead, puts in Salesforce, thinks great, and then prospects out to them, for instance. Well, you may have already prospected out to them before, so you've just wasted 5 to 10 minutes of a sales rep or an SDR or whoever's doing that. So that's one reason why it's my favorite tech tool. Is to sort out your duplication, because you're going to save so much money, which is one. The second bit is actually you get to know your target market size, which is huge, because let's say you know that your target market is, say, 20,000 leads in the UK, for instance. Your Salesforce shows that you've got 18,000. Well, actually, out of the 18,000, how many duplicates? And how do you start splitting up your territories and give your sales reps the same amount of opportunity? And you can't do that unless you get rid of your duplication issue.
And so how do they work? Do they simply just show you how many duplicates you have and you can delete them?
They merge. So Cloud Dingo actually merges, and you can create a lot of rules. It's a bit slow, but you create really good rules around merging. So if this person has, you can do it by name, email address, all these different fields in Salesforce, saying this is the characteristics, and I want you to merge it where this is the primary account and this is the criteria.
Do they charge based on just a SaaS subscription, or how many records you manage?
It's done by how many records. It's not like pound a record, but they kind of group you into a set, saying, okay, it looks like done a scan of your Salesforce. It looks like you've got 20,000 leads or contacts or accounts. It's X amount, and you can do however many mergers, and you can automate it. So, and you create blockers, so people that try and put it in. I know Salesforce has G manager, but it's not. No, it doesn't prevent what. It doesn't prevent it. So that's my favorite tech tool.
Shout out to Cloud Dingo. Maybe we should link them below the video, Josh.
I think we probably should.
Okay, I actually links very nicely onto the next question, which is how you deal with data quality. And how does your role cross over with the CRM/platform owner? I assume that is you.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is me. Yeah. So, how do you deal with it? Invest in Cloud Dingo. It is not expensive, honestly.
Really?
It's gonna save you thousands and thousands of pounds, as well as time, frustration your sales team.
It's interesting you were talking about prospecting out to the same lead, the same account previously. So it actually brings us on to what Ebster does.
Yeah, we should actually.
So we never really have talked about it, but this is really pertinent, because if you use a tool like Cloud Dingo to do deduping, if you were to use a tool like our tool inside Salesforce, you're able to surface all that communication from all those users across all time. So you can actually get a detailed understanding of okay, I know that someone has actually spoken to this lead before, and we can surface that information instantly, regardless of whether they ever logged in Salesforce. So it's and we work really well with tools like Cloud Dingo, and we try and aim at businesses who have data quality issues, which is almost every single business out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite pertinent.
I think every business I've been in has data quality issues.
Yeah.
And that's come down to the fact they haven't thought about it early on. They you feel like you can manage it because you put some rules in place, or you have one person that imports data, but it gets tricky. It gets really difficult, and it impacts so much on your sales team, the frustration that they get, the time that they spend. But also, when you start doing your go-to-market strategy, you're going to rely on everything in CRM. And if your CRM is showing so many duplications, you don't know how much of your market you have right now in terms of how much do I have in CRM, how much am I missing, how do I get it, and then you can start splitting up. So it's got a big impact, and that's how I would deal with it.
Many businesses struggle with the data cleanliness at the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
And they sometimes have sales teams who just want to call people, but they spend so much time prospecting on that prospecting stage, trying to find someone who isn't already in the system, that they can actually be really inefficient.
Yeah.
So it's getting the right target audience in front of your salespeople in a timely manner with enough information for them to be able to do their job.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing.
It's not easy. It's not
so
easy. I start early. Get it in place. Honestly, the amount that you would spend on your CRM system just to add on, whatever it is, 10% or 5%, invest into that tool or a tool that does something very similar, and then you'll be perfectly fine in the future.
So would you say the biggest challenge in your role, and let's broaden this out to around your operations work, I'm quite interested in that, is data quality, or do you think there's other challenges that you have?
You're going to say salespeople, aren't you? They're the biggest challenge.
I think I think the biggest challenge just generally is change, right? And I think I had this question asked to me by somebody to say, why should we not have you in our business? And I said, well, if you don't want change, don't hire me. And the reason, or not just me generally, but I think experienced people will always do that. They'll always come in and they'll understand things that are working really well, great, things that are not working well, and things that you're missing out on. And those two elements is where they're going to adapt change. And so I think the biggest challenge is getting people on board getting them to understand why you're making the change. And I think that comes back to, showing the value, right? Getting them to say, actually, I'm going to implement DocuSign because right now the steps are printing a contract, taking it to the office or whatever it is, coming back, scanning it or losing it, uploading it, making it digital, closed one. And great, right? But right now, when I just tell you to click a button, they sign, it comes back, and it's closed one. So it's showing the value of what you're trying to do, and it can be processes, it can be around sales stages, it can be everywhere, forecasting, your pipeline, and so I think that the challenge is really change, and getting everybody on board with it is probably the biggest challenge, but. I think how you overcome it is showing the value. But when it comes to all the different functions and the revenue upside, it's really, we need this kind of information in CRM because the onboarding team need it. Well, okay, why do you need it? Why do I need to add in more fields or more information? And it's, the reason why is because every deal that not every deal, but 20% of the deals you sign are actually getting onboarded and churning in 2 months. And the reasons why is because we don't understand the conversation you've had, or so it's
or the product is being incorrectly sold, or things are being promised through the sales process.
I think sales is of course difficult, but I think for a business the key fundamental is how do you keep them on your platform or using your product for a very long time.
We're SaaS businesses, aren't we? We need the recurring revenue. We need those customers coming back for more. That's the same for every business, isn't it?
It is.
You need to build a loyal customer base. It's not a one-time thing.
And I think the challenge around that is where you try and put processes in place that impact other functions, right? So, and I think this is where I think sales ops is, you're not always just focused on sales ops. When you're doing something within your sales team only, think about probably the two other key departments, marketing and account management, customer success, and how they're impacted, or how you maybe add one or two extra things that actually the other two functions can actually use and leverage. So I think it's just it's those two things: change and getting everybody on the same page when it comes to gluing departments together.
Single biggest on a single metric that you could judge all salespeople by?
Percentage against their target. The reason why, I had to think about this. The reason why is if somebody is, let's say 10% of your sales team are hitting 50% of their number, and you have 90% of the people hitting 85% of the number, then you've got to analyze every single area within the 10%. And it's probably going to do around sales enablement, understand the conversion rates, where is it dropping off, where is it going wrong, or have you allocated the wrong territory to them, are they getting enough leads from the SDR team, or however that is. I think that's a key indicator of for you to then start digging and understanding where it's going wrong.
Okay, nice.
So that's how I judge all salespeople, but then it comes back to you to really look into it and help them and to improve that metric.
Do you, and you'd always talk directly to the sales director to say there is a problem area here, this is how we can address it, or do you just go straight to the sales users and address it?
On that metric, I would highlight it to the actual sales manager or VP of sales, but I think you kind of need to come up with a plan together and say, hey, why don't I've analysed that the sales enablement piece is not great because the first pitch is going quite wrong because the drop-off is quite long, and me as a sales ops person, I can't tell them what around the pitching. So why don't you focus on that, and I'm going to help them track it, analyse it, and then keep them on top of what's happening and how they're improving.
And it must be great to get those people and pull them up to the same level as everyone else through your A, crunching the numbers, and B, actually going and turning them around.
Yeah, I think
really
I think that is if it happens 4 or 5 months running, then obviously there's something a little bit more fundamentally wrong with it. But showing them improvement of, if you do these 3 things the next 2 weeks, I guarantee your conversion rate is going to go X. Let's do it step by step, and it's gradual. We can't just say do all these 10 things differently in the next 2 weeks. It's just not going to work. Even if somebody told me to do 10 things differently in 2 weeks, I'd be like,
it's too many.
It just wouldn't work, and I would just get frustrated.
Okay, cool. So the final question we ask everyone on the show is, who have you learned sales operations from, and who's been a big inspiration for you?
I would say every VP of sales and CROs that I've worked with.
Really?
Yeah. 2 specifically. Well, one, obviously the business exec at IBM.
Oh yeah.
Who kind of gave me the opportunity to say, come out and do it, and be one of the youngest people to do it in IBM, which is great. But
do you want to name that person?
Well, I don't know. Sanjay Saxena. I don't know if he'll be listening, but
we can always tag him.
Yeah. Which is was a brilliant opportunity, and if I hadn't got that, I have no idea where I would have ended up. To be fair, the other 2 being Tom Glasson and Pete Crosby, but it's really, and they're very different people looking at different things. But that's where I've learned sales ops from. It's understanding the people that you support, what their thinking is, what their vision is, what they have, what they like looking at, what they haven't looked at, and you learn from that. Yeah,
that's great.
Nice.
That's great.
I think that's how you will be
Jay,
successful. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
That was a masterclass.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Henry, do you have anything else to add?
No, nothing from me. I just hope that was interesting for everyone listening. It was super interesting for me. Yeah, so...
if you want to reach out to Jay, can we give you your email address?
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is it just jay@doctify.co.uk?
Yes.
Cool. jay@doctify.co.uk. If you want to learn anything else from Jay, or learn about what Doctify does, we actually should do a little shout out for them as well.
Yeah.
Also, Evster, Henry at Evster.com if you want to learn anything about Evster. But Doctify, let's finish off.
The Trustpilot for the healthcare industry.
Trustpilot for the healthcare industry, fantastic. Let's leave it at that. Thank you everybody for watching / listening, and you'll see us again, or hear us again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.